What's up, everybody? It's your girl Ericka from the Classy Climb blog coming on in here tonight on a Tech Tuesday. Man, you guys, we got another hitter, no quitter from subzero3639live, and he brought on a guest, Mr. Charles, to talk with you guys about Salesforce. If you could come into the chat and drop your city and state in the chat so we know where you guys are coming from, and it also helps us plan future events. Now, if you guys haven't noticed, we've been doing Tech Tuesdays for 3 years now, and I am so delighted that we have guests that continue to come on and do amazing work. So, Sub, introduce yourself to the audience, please.
Hey guys, I'm Sub-Zero from Lifting the Veil IT Academy. Been doing this for about 5-6 years. Started on I had a YouTube channel that got terminated, but the other YouTube channel, I was on there one day and just said, hey, if you're looking for help, send me an email. Let's hook up. I started teaching, and it just took off from there. And so here we are today. Still have another YouTube channel, subzero3639live. So
introduce us to your guests as well.
Yeah, so I can jump in here. So yeah, my name's Charles. I'm with a company called E2 Development, and I'm partnered up with Sub. Lifting the Veil is such an amazing program. They do just amazing work, kind of getting people plugged in with IT in the tech space and getting them to understand that, like, even though it might seem like something that's unobtainable and not for people like us, that it actually is. Everything is right there in the name. What seems to be shrouded in mystery is uncovered and made accessible. So I'm just incredibly proud and excited to be a partner with him on Salesforce in particular, but there are other technologies that are available as well, and I'm just excited to kind of share my knowledge on one aspect of it.
One of the best things about when I bring on Sub-Zero and I bring on different guests, everybody's like, I know my niche, I know what my lane is, and I respect that. I love that. And you guys can network and cross work with each other. I love that part of it. Sub, I see a lot of videos lately. I'm seeing a couple of videos that I see. Man, I'm turning 40. Man, I'm turning 50. Can I do these new careers? Can I change careers? And I just had to go, Sub, you're a perfect example. Your story is a perfect example of people being able to turn it around.
I was a produce manager for years. Well, not for years. I got fired after about 5 months. But before that, I did all types of things. Played basketball overseas. I modeled in New York. I had a comedy club. I was a promoted concerts. And I was a full-time real estate investor for about 6-7 years. Then I had a mobile car wash. So I did a lot of things. As you can tell, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Right. And the housing bubble happens. I do the comedy club. It fails. I wound up to this dead end job as a produce manager making $13.50 an hour. And I had a degree with no experience in business administration and information systems. And I just never knew how to get started. Every time I would go to these career fairs, I'd get laughed out of there. Like, guy, are you serious? You have no experience. Long story short, we started my brother kept telling me about getting into the Oracle space. I was going to do Oracle as a database administrator, and I kept failing the certification test. But I knew SQL because I would fail by like 1 point. I failed twice by like 1 point, so I was really hurt. Anyway, long story short, I fast forward. I went to Atlanta, got in a program with a company in Atlanta. Was trying to get through the Workforce Investment Act, messed around and got stopped by the police. They took my car, they impounded it, they locked me up for driving while suspended because I was broke and had no money. And, they basically was trying to, keep me for 3 weeks. And, God intervened. I was able to get out of that situation. But I came home destitute, broke, no car, because my car was still in the impound at the time. My brother did get it out eventually, but I was broke, and I found this company called Set Focus, and I still had good credit. So I was able to qualify for a signature loan that allowed me to be able to get the skills that I needed. And so that's why I got into SSIS, SSRS, started learning SQL. This was way back in like 2010, so long story short, I was able to get out there and start working. But I was in my mid 30s when I did that. I wasn't 22. But I've taught people in their 50s. I mean, it's not. And one of the beautiful things about Salesforce is that it's declarative, which means it's not, well, I'm not gonna say it's all declarative, but you can get jobs in Salesforce, 3 or 4 different types of certifications, and not know a lick of code. All you got to do is know how to point, click, drag, and drop, which is what you do in your, when you grab a folder or a file in a folder and move it to another location. Same thing. And you know how to tech certain things, and that's it. And you can get a job if you're competent enough and you know how to answer questions. One of the most beautiful things I think God has blessed us at Lifting the Veil to be able to do is when you go on these interviews and you're able to record them, you're able to come back with professionals like Charles, and he can list. This is a Salesforce architect. He'll be the one doing the hiring more than likely, right? And he'll tell you, he can tell you, oh, you messed up. It's just at a different level. And we've offered Salesforce administration, but now this class coming up, we're starting with app builder. We're going all the way up to technical architect. And if you're familiar with Salesforce architects, we're talking some real money, like certain dentists, certain, like doctors, 200, you can be in the twos, easy, 200,000. That's the type of money we're trying to get you to go for. The course is 7 months, but I'll let Charles talk about it a little more. And plus, yeah, he's going to share a screen later and kind of talk about what he does.
Welcome to the floor, Charles. Come on through.
So, without further ado, I guess I'll jump in here, right? So, Sub made a lot of great points. A few other reasons why Salesforce is such a great skill set to have is just, with everything going into like the cloud and cloud-based services, Salesforce isn't something that like requires, a huge, server somewhere. It's not something that is limited to like just one company, right? Like these skills are going to be highly transferable. You might get a contract with one company and, you might get full-time employment and you're helping them build things on Salesforce, or you might go on a different path where you want to work and take on contracts. And some of these contracts can be quite lucrative, like Sub mentioned. And like, what's great about that is, you come in, you do the work for, 18 months, 2 years, whatever it might be. You learn a particular industry, and then, you have the opportunity you might join full time at that point, or you might move on and go to another contract. And one of the great things about the contracting world, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but, you definitely have opportunities to set yourself up, as an LLC or as a business. And there's benefits to doing that as well, right? If we're talking about changing people's lives and changing the trajectories of whole families and things like that. So Salesforce is just a huge market. It's a huge asset in the digital cloud-based world. And when Sub mentioned that it's declarative, all that really means is that like, rather than you having to write lines and lines and lines of code, you can configure it to be fully customized to whatever whatever the assignment at hand is, or whatever your client is looking for. So I'll talk to that in a bit. But I also do want to just mention a lot of the different roles that are available. Technical architect is kind of like, that peak of the mountain, but, there's several other paths that you can go down as well, right? Like, administrator, that's more somebody who's handling like the day-to-day. So, hey, there's a new person joined the company. We got to give them Salesforce access. Or, hey, you know what? We need some reports about XYZ. Can you help us build some reports on this? Hey, we want to add another piece of information that we want to track in our system. Can you please add that? That's more like administrator type work. And then, there's other skill sets within the Salesforce ecosystem that are just around like, what they call like requirements gathering or being a business analyst, right? That role is more along the lines of, hey, XYZ business wants to introduce, a new element to their business process. And, of course, the business folks are not the ones writing all the code. They're not the ones setting up the system, but they know what they want, right? And that business analyst job is they're responsible for obviously knowing the system well, but also getting from those business folks what it is exactly that they want to have built. A business person might say, hey, I want to build an application that can load that loads fast. Well, fast is not fast is open to interpretation, right? That business analyst would say, okay, what do you mean by that? Well, I want a page that the average load time is 3 seconds or less. Oh, okay, that's a benchmark that you can build to, right? So that business analyst job, you don't have to write any code for that at all. But what you're really doing is learning how to think in a way that takes real world scenarios and like business requests and converts them into something that is very well defined and is not open to interpretation, right? You're essentially like figuring out from a business person who's going to, mainly probably speak in like business terms and more plain English, and extract from them, what exactly is like, the indisputable facts of what's going to be built. How can we build something that meets everything that they need, that our developers can build, right? There's other roles in the ecosystem, like actually being that actual developer, being the person who's actually configuring everything and setting everything up, so there's just a lot of different areas that you can go into. And I'd say probably like the final kind of area within Salesforce is just, all of the marketing stuff, right? A lot of people don't know that like, a lot of things you interact with every single day are powered by tools like Salesforce behind the scenes, right? If you ever buy something and you get an automatic email later that says, hey, we got your order, and you get another automated email that says, hey, your order just shipped. Here's a tracking number. Or, you call in for customer support and then they send you an email with a ticket number. All those things that are powered by automation are, the infrastructure for all that stuff are applications like Salesforce. So, just going down this road, you're going to have such an impact you're going to be able to see kind of the work that you're doing have far-reaching impact in the day-to-day lives of a ton of people. So I'll kind of pause there and just kind of level set with Ericka for a second before we jump into maybe taking a look at what Salesforce looks like.
So before you got into Salesforce, what was kind of your background? What kind of led you to get into Salesforce, really?
That's a great question. I was never like trained formally in it, but I graduated back in 2010 with like a degree in statistics, but I never actually ended up using it in my professional life. That was just kind of like right after the housing bubble, and it was a bit of a recession. So, I worked some other jobs in like business development and things like that.
Mhm.
But, someone that I knew in college, you know, he's a Pakistani guy. His family is, and maybe you don't know. A lot of those folks are like really connected in the IT space.
For sure.
So,
They
he was,
helping each other out.
I mean, you know what?
That's what people do.
That's what people do. Exactly. Right.
Mhm.
So he wasn't really stressed because he was like, oh yeah, my uncle's got something kind of set up for me. Like I'll be able to walk in. All right, cool. We're good friends. So we stayed in touch. And he was like, hey man, you're pretty smart. Like you could probably pick this up. And, I just wasn't interested at the time. But, fast forward a couple years later, I circled back with him and, you know, I said, hey, is this something that's still an option? And he was like, yeah, sure. So when I got started with Salesforce, again, I didn't really have any like formal training on it, but I kind of had that role as like a business analyst that I described earlier, right? And you don't need to code for that, right? What you need to do is you got to be attentive, right? You got to
Mhm.
pay attention to details, and you have to be like willing to ask questions, right? So somebody says something in a meeting, whether you bring it up right then and there or in a follow-up email, you say, well, hey, when you said XYZ, like, what do you mean by that, right? Like the example I
Mhm.
gave about the page needs to load fast. Well, fast is open to interpretation.
Relative. Yeah.
It's exactly right. Or, the design needs to be responsive. Well,
Mhm.
what does that mean exactly, right? So, different things like that. So, that was kind of my first role. And like at the time, and this is all contract work, right?
Mhm.
So, at the time we got a contract.
Can you? I don't want to break you up in your talk. Explain contract work. What does that mean, contract work, for people who don't know and people who aren't a part of that industry?
Sure. So in the IT space, a lot of work is done on a contract basis.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is this, right? So imagine a manufacturing company, they make, I don't know, they make cars, whatever it is.
For sure.
They
Yeah.
make car parts.
Widgets, whatever the widget is.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, what is a widget, right? So they make
Yeah.
car parts, right? So, everybody who works there, they're like fine-tuned and they know the car parts industry. But you know what? They realize, man, like our computer systems are really old. We want to like upgrade our software for, like our sales channels and whatnot. So we need to bring in some computer folks to help us upgrade the system. There might not be anybody in that company who has the ability or the
Mhm.
skill set to design a whole new computer system, because everybody there is focused on making car parts, right?
Right.
Or even if they do have somebody, it might be one person whose job it is to like just keep everything running as it is. They don't have the time to like take
Mhm.
on a whole new project while keeping everything running smoothly. So they'll put out a contract and they'll say, hey, you know what, we have XYZ budget and we need someone to come in here and like redesign our, online ordering system, right?
Mhm.
So that contract might be for X amount of dollars for, 18 months. It's because it's going to take 18 months to, figure out everything that needs to be part of the system, to build it, to test it, to release it, and all that good stuff. And then,
Right.
hey, once you've built this new ordering system for them, hey, it's business as usual, and then you move on to the next contract, right? You move on to the next. So contract work is really, kind of like it sounds, right? It's this idea that like instead of you having like a permanent job at a particular place, you're doing a specific piece of work for a specific piece of time, and then you know what, you'll move on to the next one. Now, what oftentimes happens is you do a contract for a year, 2 years, whatever it might be, and then if things go well, they'll just keep renewing that contract, right? And you'll have the opportunity to like continue working there if that's something you desire. Or you might
Right.
say, hey, you know what, this isn't a good fit. You know what, I'm not a big fan of, like, this work is boring, or like, hey, I'm not a big fan of the boss here, whatever it might be. And you can choose to move on to the next thing.
Right.
So
What's
yeah.
the average length of the contract? Is it like 90 days, 6 months, a year? Like if somebody says, "Hey, they got me on contract," should they be worried? Should they be keep looking for a new job? What should they do?
Well, I mean, in 2023, there's not a whole lot of loyalty.
Right.
From from
These people ain't loyal.
yeah, right. So you should always be looking for you should always understand what the market is for your skills, right? Like
Mhm.
that's just a given, right?
Right.
But to answer your question, average length of a contract, I've very, very rarely seen anything less than 6 months. So like 90 days is kind of unheard of, because that's not even enough time to like
Implement
get
strategies.
that's not enough time for anything, in all honesty, right? Like
Gotcha.
so 6 months is the bare minimum. Most contracts standard is kind of like
Mhm.
um a year or more, right? And again, usually you will be contracted as part of a wider team, right? So it's not like, hey, there's like a spotlight on you and you have to do everything. It's more like, hey, we need someone to help us, upgrade our systems. This third party is going to hire contractors to fill roles to help us complete this assignment, right? So typically you're going to have, like I mentioned, the business analyst. That's the person who talks to the business and understands, hey, what is it you're trying to build? You're going to have
Mhm.
the actual developers. Those are the people who are building the thing. You're going to have your QA people. QA stands for quality assurance. You can just think of it as like your testers, right? So
Right.
after whatever's been built, those people are going to make sure that before it gets released out in the wild, make sure that everything that we built ties back to the needs that the business mentioned up front. And if there's any
Okay.
bugs, that's when you go ahead and fix things, right?
Right.
So yeah, typically like a development team is going to kind of have those different roles, right? And
Gotcha.
there's a couple of, like, the terminology might vary a little bit, but for the
Mhm.
most part, it's who's talking to the business and understanding what they want, who's building whatever the business says they need to build, and then who's testing to make sure it's done correctly. And it's
Correct.
important that those are three different people, because you know your business person, your business analyst, they have a core responsibility for, making sure that whatever the business wants is actually translated into something that a developer can take and run with, right?
Right.
So like they need to anticipate the questions that a developer might ask, right? That's really what you're doing. You're asking questions and like breaking down, whatever the business wants into smaller, easy to define pieces that a developer can actually build on, right? And it's important that the QA people are different than the developers because, as we all know, right, if you ever check your own work,
Man, you missed so many
yeah,
mistakes.
you're gonna assume you did it right? So,
Mhm.
so that's typically how it is. And again, there are contract roles in all those phases, right? You can
Right.
be a contracted BA, business analyst. You could be a contracted developer. You could be a contracted QA tester. And then, like I mentioned, I didn't even bring this up, but you could be a contracted administrator as well, right? After the project is complete, you're going to need
Mhm.
somebody who's like managing it day to day, right? So
Interesting.
sometimes that role could be contracted as well. Although sometimes, the company might hire someone in a full-time role to like kind of manage the tool and deal with the day to day once it's built.
For sure. For sure. Awesome, man. Listen, Sub, you there? We didn't lose you, did you? I saw you came back in.
No, I'm here.
Y'all
I'm
have
here.
some great comments. Drop some ones in the comment section. I'm gonna read over one or two real quick. King Tux said that Sub, they're talking about you on a whole nother panel. Good thing. Tam is just joking. She's like, "Am I too old for tech?" Y'all be
Not at
amazed how
all.
many times
Not
we
at
get
all.
this. Someone said, "I've never heard of this role. This is interesting."
Yeah, no, I mean,
Um,
it's one of those things. I didn't know much about it myself before I even got into it, right? Like it's definitely like, it is kind of a new world to an extent, but once you kind of settle into it, you see like, okay, everything does kind of make sense, right? It's like, you know, it's like it's kind of like building, like if you have a background in construction, right? There's like, somebody wants to build a nice building. You have an architect, you have a designer who draws something beautiful, right? And then you're going to have an architect who's making sure that it's structurally sound, and you have blueprints, and you're going to have the construction workers who are actually building the thing. And then, afterwards, you're going to have the city inspector come through to make sure everything's good. And then voila, you have a building. It's kind of like, it's similar to that, right? Like if you think about it, it's the same kind of roles, right? So, as I've matured in the space, I've come to realize that like some of these things that seem kind of complex and like very abstract and very hard to wrap your head around, there are, other industries and other areas where it's like, hey, you know what? This is actually really similar to this other thing that like I am familiar with. So definitely, don't be intimidated. Don't ever feel like it's something that's like not for you, because, if I could do it, anybody could do it. That's for sure.
Let me
for sure.
answer.
Go ahead.
She said, "Is it possible to complete this training and get hired in less than 6 months?" When you say get hired, there's a myriad of positions like Salesforce administrator, business analyst, uh, and I'm sure he can name more. But the training is 7 months, but that's for architect. That's for everything that he knows. You know what I'm saying? And so we talked about doing an architect course. But as far as being job ready, I always tell you guys, if you put in 2 hours a day, you should probably be functional enough around 100 to 160 hours. That's the number that I found just from talking to all my students over the last 6 years. These have been the numbers that I see, about 100 to 160 hours. Usually around that time frame, you have a decent enough grasp of the material to sound competent enough to be able to go out and look these people in their face and hold your own. But the entirety of everything that we're talking about teaching, no, probably not in 6 months. But it depends. I ain't gonna lie, it depends. I mean, it depends on how much you study as well. There's a lot of material we're talking about covering. So this isn't like the Salesforce administrator class.
Mhm.
This
It's
is
different.
this is a whole lot more in depth.
Okay.
If Charles is comfortable with sharing his screen, when I first met him, I was highly impressed with this brother. We had a good conversation on the phone. I thought he was white at first when I talked to him, and then
Bill, cut it out.
hey, I'm just
Cut
saying,
it out.
I told him that. I
Dumb
said,
Listen,
man,
Bill with that.
Hold on. Hey, when he shared his screen, I said, "Oh, you a brother?" I said, "What's up, man?"
Come
You know,
on, Bill. Come on, Bill. You're
it
playing
didn't
with
matter.
me,
It
man.
didn't matter. What I'm
Like,
saying is, we were talking. I was impressed. I was like, "This
For
brother's
sure.
sharp." And he shared his screen and showed me all this stuff. At me being a Salesforce administrator, I'm certified myself. I was impressed. Like, man, I didn't even know you could do this with
Mhm.
Salesforce. So I don't know if he's able to share. Charles, can you
Let me know.
share?
yeah, I mean, I'm just figuring out what the best
So
thing.
at the bottom, it'll have percent. Push the click button.
Oh no, I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
arranging my windows over here. You know, you can't see all the sauce, but I'm just trying to put the right thing on
For sure. You're fine. You're fine.
on the screen here.
Because you've been teaching a lot. Listen, you got SSQL, Oracle, Salesforce administration, data science, data engineering, data analytics, DevOps, blockchain development. Yeah, you've been doing a lot.
Yeah, I've just started figuring out is I can't teach everything, man. I can
Sure.
only teach a few things. So
Mhm.
I was gonna go get people that's way better than me. So
Well, you're lucky that you're in just a rich environment full of talented people. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, I am.
Yeah. Look at you. Yeah, I guess them people's all right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's pretty much everybody I've been able to get has been a blessing. So
um, the best thing you said is being confident when you do these interviews. For sure.
Charles, he had a question. Stephen Hester said, "Can you confirm that you don't need a foundation in the Salesforce administrator prior to this course?"
I, just to be, the most transparent, I definitely think that's an essential skill, right? Like, we'll touch on some of those things, but like another reason why Salesforce is actually a great platform to really get up to speed on is, in addition to everything we're going to cover in the course, you'll be able to, there's something that they call Trailhead, right? Where you can go in there and actually use a fully featured version of Salesforce and like apply everything that we're talking about. And like, they're going to give you real world problems to try to solve. And you're going to build, solutions that people could actually use. So, administration is, there isn't, how could I say this? When you're an architect, you're not really doing admin stuff anymore, but definitely I think for any role in Salesforce, you're going to want to have that foundation in admin, and we're going to cover that in the course.
Let me ask you. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, all right. So I noticed the app builder when I was taking my certification test, it was the same questions. It was the same test. And so, if that's part of the, I guess I don't know, platform to get towards being a architect, because I really kind of when I took the Salesforce administrator certification, I kind of felt like it was, to me, not knocking it, but I just felt like I wasted my time. I'm like, I should have went to platform or application or app builder because it's the same thing. And it's like, but it's moving you in the direction of trying to get to the architect. Am I right in that? Because I don't really deal in this space every day like you.
Yeah. So, both of those paths, like you noticed, you're going to need the admin foundation kind of no matter what, whichever direction you choose to go in. So, the first kind of intro, if you're going down the developer and an architect pathway, you're going to have the same foundation if you go down the, certified advanced administrator pathway, right? No matter what, and again, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but like, no matter what, you're going to have a base level understanding of like how the platform works overall. And that's really that's where the admin foundation is going to help you out. So, to the guy who asked the question, yes, you do need the admin foundation to become an architect. We will cover that within the course, but you're highly encouraged, right, to not just rely on what we cover in the class, but to, on your own, use Trailhead and apply some of the things that we're talking about, to put you in the best position and to accelerate your development of your skills.
Let me add one thing. When he says Trailhead, guys, like Microsoft, well, not Microsoft, Salesforce is unlike anything I've seen in that Trailhead is a web-based application that you log into or platform that you log into, and you prove your work and you earn badges. And it links up to your LinkedIn, where you can plug it into your LinkedIn, where when I go on your LinkedIn, I can see what you do. And I can see all these super badges and badges that you earn. So the beautiful thing about Salesforce, because one of the toughest things has always been getting experience. But when you get, and you get sick, you get to what they call a ranger or 50, 60,000 points. Employers are impressed. They're like, okay, this guy's been putting in some work. They showing some badges. They're getting up. There's a lot of people in the world that don't have as many points. So, worst case, like I'm gonna always tell a story when I talk about Salesforce with my barber. Used to cut my hair. This is when I was getting my Salesforce certification. And he saw me studying. He asked me what I was doing. I told him Salesforce. He's like, what's that? So I sat down, told him. So I showed him how much money the jobs pay. The next time I go get a haircut, he talks my ear off about Salesforce. Probably about 2 months later, he passed the certification, the first one. A few months later, he calls me back. By then, I've moved to another part of the city. He calls me back, man, I just passed App Builder, man. And then next thing, he called me back like 2 more. This dude is probably an architect now. But he was a barber, cutting hair, no experience. He said, man, I like this because I don't have to learn how to code. I like Trailhead.
You expose them to new things.
Yeah, he walked in and he did it himself. He did it. He always say, he called me and said, hey man, you helped me with that. But I'm like, bro, you did it. You went and got it. All I did was just show you where it was. You went and got it, and that's what he did. And I'm telling you, man, this has been a blessing for me. Just really, it's fulfilling for me to see people, to get those phone calls, the text messages from people. Hey man, this changed my life. Me and my wife, we moving, we buying a house, we starting businesses. Man, I started this trucking business. I'm doing real estate. I'm doing things, man, but I didn't have the tax returns. I didn't have the economic, capabilities. And now I'm in that position. So it's been impressive.
Yeah. So, and I just real quick, I wanted to just, I threw something up on screen. This is Trailhead. This is kind of what it looks like. So, like Sub was mentioning, it's really like, it's like a community, right? So you can jump in and like practice the things that we're going to be talking about with all these different modules. And, to Sub's point, one of the ways you can get experience, like, we all know how tricky it is in the job market, right? There's this combination of, well, we need some experience. So, well, how do I get experience without getting hired, right? So this is exactly the sort of thing that's going to help you stand out, because if you don't have a deep, extensive resume, if they took a look at your profile on Trailhead and they can see, hey, you've got X many points and you have all these different badges and you have these certifications, right? They'll be very comfortable to bring you on board, because, hey, like, this is almost like better than a resume, because it's like, as we know, a resume is a piece of paper. You can put whatever you want on there, but, going through this and like, completing the challenges and like doing all those sorts of things, you can't really fake that, right? So anybody, this is one of the ways that you can definitely distinguish yourself on the platform. And then the other good thing is, so there's actually two things, right? There's Trailhead, and then there's even certification, where Sub's point, you can add these things to LinkedIn, so you can even see, right, all the different certifications that I have as well. And there's some others that I even had before, but because I've been in this space for a while. So, for someone like me, I don't jump into Trailhead very often anymore. But for anyone who's like just getting started, definitely a great place to practice everything that you're learning in these courses, to set yourself up for success, when you're ready to enter that workforce. So with that being said, I think I should jump in and maybe show a little bit about like what Salesforce looks like behind the scenes. Is that something we want to do?
Yes, for sure. Blow it up. Make it as big as possible on the screen if possible.
So I've intentionally got it split because I want to show two different things.
Got you. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is a project I'm actually working on this currently. This is one of my clients, Fleet Power and Select Sports Cars. So they're a company, they manage rentals, some pretty nice vehicles out here in Los Angeles, and they're actually using Salesforce to keep track of things like, hey, what's the status of the vehicle? Is it ready to rent? Does it need inspection? Does the registration expire? When's the next trip? all the different things that go into running a car rental operation. Just like I mentioned earlier, if you have a business that manufactures car parts, they don't want to deal with building technology. They want to focus on building whatever it is they do. So for these guys, we actually built out Salesforce to help them with that. So again, don't want to jump too deep into all the technical stuff, but essentially everything that you're seeing on the screen is like custom, right? So when you start up Salesforce, it's kind of like, I think of it like, when you get Legos for Christmas, right? There's the nice picture on the box of what you can build, but when you open up that box, you've got to build it yourself, right? So a lot of companies are like, whoa, this is more than I bargained for. Let me go find some pros, or some pros like you guys are going to be in the future to help me build this thing. So just at a very high level, right? Everything in Salesforce, there's two things that make it kind of very unique and very attractive for businesses. Most businesses are going to use, spreadsheets to keep track of stuff, right? And the problem with spreadsheets is every time somebody saves it, I email a spreadsheet to somebody else, they change some things, and then they email it back to me. And now I have a different version. Which version is the right one? This one's out of date. Oh, I sent it to somebody else. They updated it. And all you're seeing is rows and rows of data, but you can't really understand the whole picture of what's going on, right? But with Salesforce, if I'm looking at any vehicle, right, and I'm just looking at the information for the vehicle, if I click into any one particular vehicle, it's all the same information that would be in a spreadsheet, but it's laid out visually so you can see a lot of things at once, right? So for any vehicle, I can see a graph of how much the revenue's coming in, right? I can see any expenses. I can see all the trips that have come in. And this is all stuff that was built custom just for them, right? I can see a list of, all the different services that have been completed, right? Oil changes, getting the car clean, whatever it might have been over time. I can see all the, they can see all the tickets that people get during these trips. They can track all their expenses. So there's so many things that they're able to track. And again, with Salesforce, you can customize this for anything you want. I have other clients, they use Salesforce to manage, they're ticket brokers, right? They're in that business. They use that to manage the requests that people have. With Salesforce, you can have that connected to like a website that somebody can go to, right? And have, when somebody fills out a form, have that come into Salesforce and the business can operate from there. And everything we're looking at has actually been built from scratch, behind the scenes. So what I'm going to show you on the left is actually kind of a relatively new feature that a lot of people don't know about is, not only can you use Salesforce for what we call back-end administration, you can actually connect it to your own custom front end, right? To where you can go to a website that doesn't look anything like Salesforce, that's completely branded by the company and have the same kind of functionality. So on the right, I'm logged in directly to Salesforce. On the left, I'm actually going to log into to a public-facing page that's built by Salesforce behind the scenes, but it doesn't show any of that. It doesn't obviously look like Salesforce. So what you're seeing on the left, this is the company Select Sports Cars, and it actually has all the same functionality, but it's completely branded with their logo, their colors, and think about a lot of the way businesses run today, right? They've got to go talk to somebody who does their website. Hey, we added a new car. We need you to add the car to the website so people can go book it. Okay. You got to go tell somebody to go do that. And then separately, you have somebody else managing it back here. Well, what's great about having a system like this is you can add whatever information you want behind the scenes, right? And that same exact information is going to be available, from this perspective, the same exact thing, right? And again, we can have it branded. We can have it look really nice. Everything that's available is available, in kind of like a different, with like a different UI. UI stands for user interface. So it's all the same information, but you can just visually make it appear however you want. So even just being able to understand how to manipulate the screens of Salesforce, right, and to make it look more visually appealing, that's a huge skill set, and we'll talk about some of those things as well. And then in terms of how do we configure this behind the scenes, To Sub's point earlier, there's elements that you might need to like write code. And again, because a typical development team is going to have a few people wearing different hats, I wouldn't worry yourself about that, because there's a ton of work that can be done without necessarily like writing lines of code, where you're able to provide a ton of value and build a lot of really cool things, just kind of using like your mouse, right? Point and click. So I'm going to bring this screen over here. So behind the scenes, right, a lot of the things that we're looking at on the screen it's really drag and drop, right? So at a very, very high level, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds, but essentially like the way that let's say I want to look at all the trips that are like pending, right? And there's not a ton, but like this would be like someone went on the website, they filled out the form, but like they didn't pay yet, or we didn't complete a background check on them, or whatever it might be. So this screen here, right, to build this, just behind the scenes, there's no code being written here. All we're doing is dragging and dropping different elements. And then in each of these elements, we're saying, hey, this is the next step I want you to do, right? So for example, to generate this list of records, and maybe I'm actually going to switch it up. I'm going to look at a list of services, because this is a better example. Yeah, we got a ton of records here, right? So there's all these different cars that need certain things, right? Speakers are a little bit out, like there's the drivers, the seats, whatever, oil change coming up, whatever it might be, right? So to generate this list, we have kind of what we call a flow, right? Where there's all these decision points that need to happen before we land at the appropriate screen to show whatever the list of records is, right? So that's really what we're doing here, right? So we're adding all these different elements. There's something called a decision, which is kind of like, it's almost like it's like a yes or a no thing, right? So like this first decision here, hey, are we looking at a trip? If the trip ID is populated, go this way. If not, go this way. All right. Or are we at the vehicle page? If we're at a vehicle page, go this way. If not, go a different way. Okay. So for each of these elements, right, it's all based on, logic, and it's based on like just almost like true false questions, right? To where again, that the real job that you have is understanding what is like the business logic of what they're trying to do, and then breaking that down into enough smaller questions for a developer to take and run with and build themselves, or when you get to a certain skill level and comfort level, for you to like build out yourself, right? And of course, there's all these levels of detail where it's like, okay, well, what do I show if I don't have any results? Do I show nothing? Do I show a message that says, hey, go back and try again? How do I filter? So there's a bunch of things that go into it, but I did want to make sure that people understand that like to build these things, you're not necessarily like, looking at a screen that looks like the Matrix, right? It's very approachable. All of these things have gotten to a point where it's a lot more accessible to people, because it's not relying on, something very, very abstract. It's more based on, hey, I want the screen to look like this. So these are the steps that I take to make it look like this. I'll put it like this, right? If we have people who like, used to mess around with like MySpace back in the day, I'm dating myself a little bit, but if you ever messed around with MySpace and you like change your profile over there, or, if you can work Instagram, you can work this. I'll put it like that. So, don't get me wrong. We're going to get you up to speed. We're going to train you. We're going to make you feel confident and comfortable, but this is definitely something that anybody could do. So.
And Ericka, I can't see the chat, but my phone number, the phone number, if you want to do like a consultation, just schedule a consultation off the website, and it's www.ltvacademy.com for lifting the veil, ltvacademy.com. And my phone number, that's right now, don't call me now, because
you know how people are. 678
627 2796. 678 627 2796.
All right, I'm gonna put it in the chat for everybody. Don't call right now, no. But after tonight, so you can set up your a free consultation with you. Okay. One of the questions in there said, Ericka, can Subzero talk more about Salesforce? And I guess they're trying to say chat GTP, or either one of y'all, honestly.
Yeah, that's Charles area of expertise. I can't speak on that one. Not
For
with
sure, for
Salesforce.
sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is all, it's all relatively new, right? But I mean, Salesforce is one of the leading players in the space, right? So everything you're looking at in Salesforce, you have the ability to interact with outside applications. So GPT has something called an API, and it's basically how one internet-based application can talk to another one, right? So like if you notice when you go on, I don't know, like like Uber or something, there's a map on there. Uber didn't build a map from scratch. They're too busy focusing on their piece. They'll just reuse, they'll use an API and they'll just reuse like the Google map or the Yahoo map or whichever one they're or maybe it's the Microsoft one, whatever. But so these APIs allow you to, for one system to talk to another, and you're not necessarily building everything from scratch. You're saying, hey, if I need a map, I can use Google's API. If I want to take payments, I can use, PayPal's API. If I need to take, what else? If I need to do something for like accounting, I don't have to build it from scratch. I'll use the QuickBooks API to pass information back and forth. So GPT falls under that same kind of like framework where, because it's so new, anybody looking to do something in the short term, the easiest thing to do is going to be to just use an API to have Salesforce talk to Chat GPT. But coming out pretty soon. I mean, I've seen some of the things that are on the Salesforce like roadmap in terms of their future products and features. There is going to be like a direct plugin for GPT and like generative AI. So that's definitely on the horizon. I mean, Salesforce is on the cutting edge. And another thing I think a lot of people probably don't know about is, because Salesforce is entirely online, it's not software that you install on your computer. You can log into it from anywhere. You can log into it from your phone, your laptop, your lady's house, your parents' house, wherever. If you got an internet connection, you can get on
Your lady's house.
So, and because of that, because it's not, software you install locally, anytime there's an update, you'll see it the next time you log in. So they're always adding more and more new features. And that's another reason why, like, continuing to take these courses and being plugged in with the community is a big thing, because as new features come out, you'll have the opportunity to kind of be like at the front of the line of people who know how to do these skills, right? So like, even though there might be people who've been working in Salesforce for 10 years, hey, listen, they added a new feature. Everybody's on the same page. You know what I mean? Because it's brand new. So that's another reason why, like, there's no reason to like be intimidated about like, oh man, I missed the boat. Jump in with both feet. And there's always going to be new features and new functionality. And there's always going to be a huge need where companies need to do stuff like this. Like, you wouldn't believe like how much the phone rings for like, companies like mine that go out and do the kind of work, right? Like, I'll go out and get contracts where, I'm developing applications for, as part of a larger team, or even doing the whole thing myself, because I kind of have a lot of the different skills. But, you guys will get there, but, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of opportunity here. So
I love it. We got a couple questions. Let me knock out a couple of them before we continue. This one says, I'm currently in the Bay Area. Are there any folks working in physical Salesforce locations?
yeah, so that's a great question. So just to backtrack a little bit. So Salesforce, they are the company that built this software, this online platform that other companies use to help them run their business, right? So most of the jobs in Salesforce are not working for Salesforce directly. They are working with other companies who use Salesforce's platform to help them run their business. So again, like when we say platform, what we mean is like you build on top of it. So Salesforce is almost like the foundation, and you're going to build on top of it whatever you need for your particular company. Like in this case, we built things relating to cars on top of Salesforce. There's other companies, I have other clients where we build things relating to like, tickets to sporting events on top of Salesforce. So the only people who work directly for Salesforce are going to be the people who are like building the platform itself or trying to sell subscriptions to Salesforce to other businesses. So like this company, right? They are paying, Salesforce however many dollars a month to have access to their platform, right? So the most of the people at Salesforce are literally there to sell this platform, access to this platform to companies. So I just wanted to make that distinction. And in that case, there are physical like Salesforce locations, but like it's not really for folks who are doing this line of work. It's for people who are like trying to sell the platform to other businesses. So and they have offices literally all over the country. They're like a huge corporation.
Okay, we got just a few more if y'all can help me. People in the comments like, it's massive there. Okay, cool. Someone said, Terrell Purdy said, I had a 90-day contract turned into 1.5 years with a pay raise to extend the contract. Let me see here. There's the other one. Hold on.
No, that's typical. That happens all the time. Like I've definitely been in that situation, and again, one of the great things about contracts, man, like just like a ball player, the prices went up. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Exactly. So, when you're a full-time employee, you don't necessarily get a raise every year. You know what I mean? You don't necessarily, or your raise might be built in. Hey, it's 3% each year. Don't ask me. You know what I mean? Whereas I've had, significant raises in between contracts because the market changed, so that's definitely something that happens all the time in the industry.
Do you guys have a track for those interested in Salesforce Marketing Cloud?
So that's a different area than my focus. Sub, I don't know if that's something you have in the roadmap or not.
No, I haven't come across anybody with that particular expertise yet. Just we just, architect is, well, I think that covers. Can you cover what that covers? Like when you say architect, because there's different types.
So an architect, you're not necessarily writing every single line of code or even setting up every single page, right? What you're doing as an architect is you are in charge of like the strategy. How do we go about doing this? So it's just like, again, I try to make that comparison to like building a building, right? The architect isn't going to pick up a hammer. He's not going to lay any concrete. He's the one that is like, hey, I'm going to design the blueprints. You guys build what my blueprint says. That's what an architect does, right? The other thing an architect has to consider is, again, in today's world, a lot of these things are connected, right?
Right.
So, we have in this example, they're keeping track of all their cars, but there's an integration with like some security devices that are tracking where the cars are at real time, right? They didn't build that from scratch because, hey, there's a company that already does that. But the architect is going to have to understand, hey, if I want to see this information inside of Salesforce, how do we connect with that other system to bring that info in? So an architect is really designing the solution that the developers are going to build, right? So, and if the developer has questions, they'll come to you and then you'll say, hey, we should do it like this. Or, hey, you know what, look out for this other thing. Or, another big issue for architects is understanding what we call a roadmap, right? So like, because a lot of these really large projects take a long time, it's not even just what you build. Sometimes it's like the order in which you build it, right? Like you can't, maybe the end goal is to build an online ordering system that can store credit cards. But okay, great. Well, you actually can't do that until you set up like, security settings to where, hey, we can store credit cards securely and like nobody can like, break in and hack us, right?
And that's a big thing. That's a very big thing.
So an architect has to understand not just what are we building, what is the business asking for, right? It's also understanding the implications of that. Well, it's like, hey, look, if you want this you can't get this without having this other thing in place first. Or it's like, you see people who like, they work out in the gym and they're like real buff up top, but they skip leg day, right? And then they're real, they got a real shaky foundation. You don't want to build a bunch of, you don't want to build a lot of things that your underlying system can't handle, right? So like if I connected this with like an ordering system that can handle like, okay, 1,000 requests a day, great. The company grows, they're doing really, really great. What you built to handle 1,000 orders per day, as an architect, you have to understand, hey, this is cool for up to 1,000 orders. Once the company grows, we're going to have to change some of this stuff, because to handle 10,000, that's a different kind of design, right? And you're going to have to understand what are the pros and cons of doing certain approaches, right? Because hey, maybe if we're only expecting to handle 1,000, all right, we can do this fast, we can do this quick. Maybe there's a certain, I don't want to say shortcuts, but there's certain things you just don't have to consider with the small volume. But if you have a big volume, there's other things to consider. So the architect, that's really what they're doing. It's designing the solution that the developers are going to build and having an understanding of how do all these different elements of the system interact with each other, and how does one thing affect the other thing. So that's it really in a nutshell.
One of the questions said, "Good evening. I just started with Trailhead trying for admin. I have 450 points so far. This broadcast has inspired me to keep going. Thank you."
Dope. Keep it up.
Okay, let me see. I got some more here. Y'all got a lot going on. Knowing flows in Salesforce will get you paid. Here's Sub's number, you guys. Don't call right now. Somebody said, when do we call? Sub, when do they call you? When can they make time to talk to you?
I'm available as soon as we end this broadcast. I'm assuming we got
Look
like
at you.
5 more minutes. And after 5 more, 5, 6, 10 more, however long, Charles, if he has anything else to say, but I'm available as soon as this is over.
Okay.
I answer the phone, text me, call me, or go on the website. I don't know if you got that in the chat, but
We do.
the web,
We do.
yeah. So the website, if you can click on there and schedule. Today I had something funky going on with my phone. I'm really kind of upset about, but that being said, it's fixed. And so now, if you have any issues, you schedule a consultation at a certain time tomorrow or whenever. Between class starts Tuesday, by the way, next Tuesday. So we got 7 days precisely for class. Class is 2 hours. Starting, we're going to start at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm sorry, yeah, which would be because he's in California, so that'll be 6 his time. And class is 2 hours. Everything will be recorded. It'll be 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Saturday, which would be 8 a.m. his time. So 11 a.m. Eastern. Everything's recorded. We take the class is going to be 6 to 7 months. It's not just the administrative course this time, which is what we've been doing. It's more like an introduction. This is not an introduction. It's going to be as you can see, looking at the screen, he's going to dive into the nuts and bolts of, what really helps you stand out to employers, not just the administrative piece, which I'm not knocking, obviously, but.
And you help them on that side. You help them get interviews. You help them review what they may did wrong. Like talk some more a little bit of that part.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the part where he would come, Charles would come in, because I can help you with, if I listen to your interview, like I've listened to other people's interviews from different disciplines, and I can tell where they may or may not know certain things, and so I'll tell them, but it's within my wheelhouse. I try not to give advice I don't have any understanding of blockchain like that. So, or data science. So what happens if we have like one night a week with the instructor after classes, even after you unsubscribe, you can be unsubscribed. Once you're a student, you're like a part of a family. You're in a Facebook group, and we have like a once a week. It's just going to be about an hour, but we come in, touch bases, get to know what everybody's doing. We listen to interviews, answer questions, and at that time is when you kick the tires. You say, "Hey, I had this interview. Can you listen to it?" And then we listen to it and we say, "Okay, this is why." And usually, if the other class is listening, what tends to happen is the rest of the class members are listening, and that skill set, gets absorbed in their brain, and they understand and know how to operate within these environments. And so that's the skill set we offer more than anybody. And like I said, nobody does that. Nobody's going to sit there and tell you, you're not going to have a guy like, you saw how many certifications he had. If you want to do Salesforce.
Certs on certs on certs.
Yeah, I was saying, you want to do Salesforce, you go on an interview, you see a guy with look like 10 of them. He's probably the guy you want to talk to if you want to do Salesforce. So, I mean, this has been, I feel like I was led by God. The way we kind of met each other. So it is what it is. I think this is going to be great. I think he's going to do a great job. Cool brother, real smart, knows what he's talking about. And I think we're going to just keep plugging away at it, trying to plug people in.
I love it. I love it. Sub John, thank you for the $2 super chat. He said, I have to ask, is Sub-Zero from DC or Marvel Universe?
No, Sub-Zero is a basketball moniker that I had when I threw a move on a guy one time and dunked on him.
He froze.
Way back. This is like in the 90s when Mortal Kombat was big. So that's why they call me, that's what they call me.
For sure, for sure. Someone said, I just finished Salesforce administration course and currently studying to go up to developer path. Congratulations. Someone said they spoke to you today, Sub. Thank you for that. Y'all get likes up. Get the likes up. Okay. Thank you, Jordan to Jasmine. Okay. So Charles, break it down. What are some things that somebody's coming today? They're like, man, what Charles was talking about. I got to get into it. What are some things you want students to come bright-eyed and bushy-tail ready next week for, Charles?
I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter where you're at, right? We're gonna get you coached up. So just come with like an open mind. Just come like ready to learn, and that's really it. Like I'm not gonna, this ain't you don't have to do summer reading before school starts, right? Just show up, and wherever you are, we're gonna kind of get you the basics, and then we'll start running with some more interesting stuff. So,
man, I love it. I love it. You guys, you hear that? Come with the open mind. Come ready, prepared. Drop any questions you have, because I want to respect these guys' time, because it's a little late on Sub side of town and it's a little early in Cali. So you guys, any questions, drop them in there. You got a good minute or two of their time. We're trying to be respectful. Sub.
One more thing.
Break it down.
What was I about to say? Oh yeah. Former students, if you've taken the class, taken Salesforce in the past, I have a special promo code I'm gonna give out to all the old students if they want to come in. So I'll have that in the Facebook group. I'll go live in the group and show it to y'all.
Cool. I mean,
they have the data science course is heavy with info. Want to learn? Hit the link. Is that the class you currently offer, the data science?
That's one of them. We do data science. We do blockchain. Actually, what's happened, I talked to me and Javon we're going to combine data science with blockchain, because the skill set is very similar as far as what you could use. All you have to do is tweak the data science information they're learning and add some blockchain and certain aspects of that with smart contracts, and you off and running. So we talking about combining those two. So you'll see. I'll reach out to you.
When will that change? That changes.
That's probably going to be. We got to sit down and touch some stuff. This is our first time we did it, and we're at the home stretch on data science. And so what we're trying to do now is we're going to iron out some kinks, make sure everything's smooth, and be able to give everybody a full on syllabus of day by day. This is what you should be learning. That way, everybody's on point, and so that's what we're going to do this time. When in between, me and him going to sit down and talk about it. But
for sure,
that's what we are now. This course still being successful, and Javon, like I said, Javon got a lot of connections. So I've been blessed, man. I got Javon, I got Charles, I had Sean. Me and Sean go back 30 years. I've been knowing him way back. So I have really been blessed. And now some of my former students are teaching. So a lot of students have come back and they want to pour back into other students. So I got Marvin. Shout out to Marvin, Maurice. I had Lima. They're actually taking on some of the stuff, the day-to-day with teaching data analytics. So that's what we are. We just growth.
For sure. Sounds good. Listen, if you guys hit the links that we have in the chat, or if you hit the links in the description, this is on his first page. At the bottom, it said, like right in the middle, it says book consultation is in the white and enroll now is in the red. You can go on here and click this link, or you can probably text Sub. As he said, you can call and text him. But just in case the line is busy and you want to go set your timer for tomorrow, that might be what you want to do. And anything else, Sub? Did I miss it? I'm looking.
No. That was it. Charles, did you have anything?
No, that's it.
Plans and pricing, you guys. You can click all the top links as you see I'm showing on the page here. When you come down here, Salesforce track $297, entire Salesforce architect, multi-class member, annual mentorship. He got all kind of stuff up in here. He got it all. Definitely hop on the phone with him, talk with him, see which one works best for you, what you need to do. And again, these come with Facebook access. These come with interview prep. These come with resume prep. Listen, I just had somebody prep my resume the other day. I know that recruiter was like, girl, what is this mess? I said, I don't know. I ain't had to work in a long time. Just see if you can get me some money.
Let me say the one at the bottom down there, that's for like a year access. The one at the very bottom, like if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see it. If you scroll down to the bottom, it'll be data science will be, well, that class probably starting next month, July, I mean.
July, we already in July. July.
So this is 12 months access to any class we offer. Okay. That's what that is. You scroll up, the one on the right is the entire course that Charles is going to be teaching. Some people want to pay for it up front. If you just want to do month to month, hey, as I learn, as I go, $297. I made it affordable. And what will be coming soon is a firm. I've been approved with them. I'm just working out the kinks. I've been approved with a firm in Klarna, as well as FlexPay. So it a firm, anybody qualifies for it. So if you want to come in, you can have a 500 credit score as long as you got a paycheck. You don't have to pay. You can get 12 months access and learn blockchain, data science, Salesforce architect. You can learn all of it.
You can do whatever you want.
And that way you don't have to, you can take them simultaneously. You can take them 2 or 3 times over the next 12 months. Any class we offer, you get access to. So that's that one. So, but like I said, if you want to be, if the cheapest, I made it for everybody. Like the $297 is the lowest. That's just to get in the class. That's usually what people sign up with. But if you want to, have 2 classes at once or more than 1 class, that's the $457. So, and we're going to get this going, man. We're going to get this going. I want to thank you, sister,
for sure,
for helping me be on here. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here, and thanks, Sportsman. Hey, I'll be looking out for your call, brother. I'll be ready for you.
For sure.
Yeah, man. Charles been a blessing. He did a masterful job, as what I expected. So, you guys see what he, brings to the table. So check us out.
For sure. I like it. Thank you, Sub, for coming on. And if you're on our email list, we have 15,000 people on the Classic Climb email list, 15,000 plus, but that's a whole nother conversation. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we email out some of these videos, some of these links, so you guys don't miss the opportunity to talk to Sub, talk to any of my affiliates that I love bringing on here, because they are the best at what they do. And they spending this time here with me when they could be just chilling out by the beach. You know what I'm saying? So hit the like video, hit the like button, and also drop a comment after the video renders. Thank you guys so much for your time tonight. And Sub, say your phone number one more time as you go out the door.
That number is 678-627-2796. Give me a call right after this.
All right, y'all hear that? He said, blow the flow lines up. I didn't look. That's on him. He going to be up all night. All right, you guys. This is your girl, Ericka from the Classic Climb blog. Thank you so much, Charles, for coming through and saying hi to the channel. Thank you so much, Subzero, aka Mr. Bill. And
thank
you guys, for
of course,
sure, anytime. Thank you guys so much for being here. And you guys, this is Ericka Williams, Classic Climb. You guys have a great evening.
All right.
All right.
Everyone.